supporting kind of the CMU research community, specifically around the issues of like reproducibility and open access and that sort of thing. And slowly but surely kind of creeping out into some of those other areas of open science, things like incorporation of informal science opportunities, citizen science, and also kind of public outreach, educational opportunities. And that's kind of, through my involvement with Sensorica, I've been talking with Tibby and some others within Sensorica for several months, maybe 8 or 9 months at this point. I'm trying to kind of bring some of the culture that I've kind of assimilated through Sensorica and some of these other communities into Carnegie Mellon's Open Science program. Trying to kind of raise awareness about some of these other opportunities and kind of nudge them in that direction, right? So I think the way that I was kind of brought into the current project is through, we're working on a mapping project, kind of similar to this process that Hugo's doing right now is looking very familiar, because we're using the Neo4j. They have what's called an Arrows app. It's kind of a prototyping tool that we're using to basically do this, but with organizations and other entities operating within the kind of common space peer production space. So it looks very much like this. We've kind of started right now with the Sensorica community, trying to map out, some of the entities that are kind of connecting with them, some of the projects that are spinning off of those networks. And little by little, we want to kind of create a more open interface so that other kinds of communities who identify with common space peer production and the kind of peer-to-peer movement can actually jump in and kind of enter their own information, right? They can map their local region of that space and include some of the attributes that are kind of personally relevant to them. So that's where we are now. We're just kind of brainstorming a lot of this and kind of trying to come up with a methodology that makes sense. And then little by little, we hope to kind of start bringing in some of these other communities to assist with that mapping. So that's where I'll leave it. Happy to kind of address any follow-up questions if there are any.
Yeah, just let's continue the round of presentations. So Marcelo, feel free, man.
Yo. Hi guys. Can you listen to me?
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, I'm on the edge of the transition for a new world by helping to make 2 beautiful projects to take off. The first one is Utopia. I think that you are already aware of this incredible approach to engage people on the regeneration paradigm. And the other one is called Money of Good, which is a socio-economic platform that connects neurofeedback with blockchain to offer a system where people can make a basic income by practicing meditation. So it's a reward system based on neurofeedback that encourages people to practice meditation every day. So, but currently I'm putting like all my coins, my OS coins in Utopia, because I feel that we are like taking speed, and soon we are going to take off to really high altitudes. They're going to help a lot of people to be part of this beautiful transformation. And if you want to learn more, I can share some links, and it will be really amazing to receive your feedback.
I will be able to add the links actually on the map.
Oh yes, yeah, yes. I'm gonna put the links on the chat, and then the person that is creating this map, who is this? Hugo. So Hugo, please, then you can copy.
Yeah,
from the chat.
So
thank you.
Chibi,
you can also include any bubbles or lines in the map if you would like to. That's what you're using.
Chibi, my friend, it's your turn.
Okay. um, I guess one day, Vinicius, I guess one day, as you add this new layer on top of the records, and you can connect them together, people when that have been participating wouldn't have to present themselves because everything will be mapped already, right? and connected. But yes, so a bit about me. For the purpose of maybe this interaction, the new person here is Marcelo, right? I'm a peer-to-peer guy. Let's say I jumped the boat kind of 10 years ago, and live most of my time in this peer-to-peer land. And what I try to do is understand how we can do material peer production. You know, Patrick spoke about commons-based peer production. It's a very technical term. If you're not familiar with Yochai Benkler, he wrote The Wealth of Networks, and a very nice paper called Causes Penguin, where he explains this new mode of production that we see in open source hardware and software, we see in Wikipedia and all that, commons-based peer production. But you know, we bring it to the material world. So if we are able to swarm a Wikipedia and create this this knowledge repository, let's call it, as a network, as an open network and permissionless network, can we actually build cars one day as a permissionless network? So this is what we're trying to understand here. How can we do it? How can we do it efficiently? Can we do it more efficiently than capitalism? Then we won the game. Yeah. So that's my that's what I'm trying to understand. And there was a just to connect with your your I don't know if I'm gonna just paraphrase, currency and neurofeedback, way to incentivize people to do X and Y. I'm talking about wealth. I think what we're also trying to do in unlocking material commons-based peer production is to leverage new forms of wealth that exist but are not seen or captured by capitalism. Wealth as potential for production, or using it to set in motion economic activity. So today it's just money. If you wanna make something, the vehicle is a company, and the way to build a company is money, and you pay people and you buy stuff and you rent stuff. So money unlocks economic activity in capitalism. Well, in commons-based peer production, with Sensorica, what we're trying to understand is that what are the other types of wealth that people have, and they can bring together and unlock economic activity without the need to go to the bank. Okay, so yeah, I guess that's a bit about me.
That's amazing.
Orion?
Yeah. It's mind blowing. I'm having a brain massage with this 7 vortex thing. Yeah, I'll take the wealth. I think it started with wealth. How to start that? I like the journey started actually based on this idea of wealth when I was still working at Apple. I come from France, from the very western part of France. And at some point, actually, I felt extremely frustrated about the way we were using these tools, right? The way we were using smartphones in order to connect, and the fact that it was actually like connecting our digital life through a centralized ecosystem, and actually it was directly stealing people's data. And like the whole journey started with this idea of the different form of wealth and how you could connect wealth with knowledge. And this idea that like good solutions to fight poverty in its different form, material poverty or spiritual poverty, already existed, but they were not available, or they were not connected properly. And that's the moment actually this idea of wealth connected with Sikana, with this vision of creating Sikana with a K, with this idea of creating a model of producing audiovisual content to accelerate the transition to a more ecological and human way of working and connecting together. And well, we ended up producing like more than 2,300 videos dubbed into 10 languages. But actually, like, it was still organized in a centralized way. And that the moment actually that opened up the door to really connecting knowledge as a new form of wealth was the moment that Sikana connected with Utopia as a way of like connecting it in a way that's actually like Utopia would end up being a game based on knowledge connected to this idea of regeneration and of creating an ecosystem together that could actually allow people to bring their different form of wealth and of idle wealth, with this idea of idle wealth. And this idea of idle wealth being unlocked through a gamified regenerative experience based on your interaction with Utopia. And yeah, that's it. And then Utopia actually connects with another project that is actually with two projects that actually are like connecting the things regarding how to make this wealth transfer based on knowledge connected with an asset-backed currency. And that's why Utopia connected with Threefold. And that's Threefold and Holochain that are both connecting with Utopia as a way of creating asset-backed currency that can be the connection for that knowledge to be actually being backed from the network that is around. So and with two cultural imprints for Utopia that are connecting with that is the WhoCast and the WhoCast and the WhoFilms, that are like the two way of like building this imprint, this regenerative imprint and peer-to-peer imprint into the system. But basically, yeah, that's what I've been doing. and weather is nice outside. I have a cup of coffee. I'm in Rio. I have a cat right there in the room. So basically, that's.
Is it okay like this, guys, or is it too disturbing for the conversation? Maybe.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm going to try to be brief, very brief, so not spend an hour or 2 hours here mapping this. So basically, my life, I can separate my life into big moments, big phases. When I was totally in game A in the last century, doing 17 years, doing consultancy for governments, consultancy for little firms, little companies, consultancy for, but related to what? Related to intelligence and marketing, right? Intelligence and marketing. So I work with that a little bit, but in parallel, I was exploring, trying to understand the world with other, let's say, cultural imprints, right? So I travel a lot in the 80s and I travel a lot in the 90s, and it was two very important decades for me because as I was, let's say, ranking up in the game A matrix world, I saw all the things that I was not doing well, was not was doing wrong, was not doing well, was not providing well-being, right, for society as a whole. And I start to exploring possibilities of to be in this, let's say, in this planet with other frameworks. So I already tried the indigenous, the Aboriginal indigenous and community, local communities framework in the 80s. And I tried the eco villages in the 90s. And so I start my, let's say, peregrination to understand if it was another way to be in this planet. So I stumbled upon in 2005 on the P2P Foundation with Michel Bowens, where he's just founding it. And I started to have some conversation at that time. And I was amazed about this peer-to-peer movement, about this peer-to-peer paradigm, let's say, as he called it. And I was amazed how it was reframing all the understandings, the inner understandings of what is wealth, what is how to generate wealth, how you work, how you generate knowledge, and things like that. So I started doing my explorations, and in 2008, I stepped upon another, let's say, think tank that was called Escola de Redes, network school, let's say, but in English, but it's Escola de Redes, that was investigating the new science of network and investigating complexity without the systems added to the name. So we're talking about complexity in a very complexity manner, not in a complicated manner, not a systematic manner. So I was amazed by this. I was amazed the second time by this discovery. And I start my own, let's say, explorations, my own research. But at the same time, I was changing totally my way to live, right? I was becoming more interdependent. I became a minimalist. I became more interdependent. I actually resignified totally my dealing with money as a whole. I understand that everything if you can access it and be accessed, if you have this peer-to-peer, let's say, mutual access, you can actually live very well, right? And because we already accumulated a lot in this hyper-consumeristic societies that we turn out to be. So I was doing very well for me and let's say for my family, but I felt that it was going to be important to let's say to expand this for other people, right? So I started to netweave, not network. I started to netweave all the things that I learned, all related to abundance, abundance logic, and the peer-to-peer movement. And I started to connect with the Regen movement that was just starting in the second decade to have a burst, right? And I understand that we were really in the precipice of a new thing to happen. I felt that in the second decade. And it was not only related to, of course, blockchain, Bitcoin. It was not only related to that. It was related to the thing that in a very wide conscious manner, I felt that we as a species, we were already sensing that the ways that we establish what we call civilization, it became to an end, right? It starts to collapse, really. And actually, this collapse burst a lot of the things that I was doing. And I think that's okay, because in the end, I felt that we could make transitions and mutations and adaptations from, let's say, what is already established and institutionalized and crystallized as societies, as game A, let's say, and make mutations, adaptations, and transitions to game B. So not only one game B, a lot of types of game Bs, right? A lot of types of ethos related to regenerative and peer-to-peer movements and things like that. So that's why I started this conversation about wealth transfer, and I was very pleased to know that you, Patrick, and the TB was already doing something else in that sense. So that's it. Here we are. It would be nice. It would be nice if you make a presentation of yourself, my friend. I know that you have your self mapping, right? Yourself mapped. So
Yeah, so well, let's just do it for the sake of the exercise if you want. Let's say that I'm related to Utopia and UCAST with Florian and Vinicius. My name is Hugo Araujo. And what I do is ecosystem mapping. So well, actually it is biomimicry. It might be better just to explain, which is innovation inspired by nature. And then from there, I move into ecosystem mapping. And this is what you are looking right now. And ecosystem mapping, it is done, I think, in alliance also with Neo4j. So this is a graph database that is being built on the top of Neo4j. And I work with different kinds of people and developers, but they are not, well, the name is GraphAware, but they are not involved exactly in this kind of processes. And what I wanted to bring to the world is really this ecosystemic knowledge, because I think it should be, of course, open. So I feel related to the idea of peer-to-peer, but in the way that the organisms behave. So I see more my perspective coming from nature. So being a biomimicry professional, I spend time in nature and learning biology with my biomimicry peers. And from there, I'm trying to emulate and also having ethos for applying all these kind of things into the digital realm. I've been doing some other stuff that is called, for example, Virtual Gaia. And Virtual Gaia is also a visualization of the planet that is helping to bring this perspective of interconnectedness. And the interconnectedness, I wish to be able to make it a visible metabolism, so we can understand that the Earth is alive, and to understand bioregions in the territory. So I think this is related also to this permissionless network a lot. and I do a lot of audiovisual content as well. So this is what I do. I don't know if there is something else that needs to be shared around, but I'm honored and happy, and thanks for letting me capture some of your thoughts. I apologize in advance for my native language is Spanish. I'm sorry, I'm not looking the colors in the right way. So this is just my perception of what you are saying, and if you want to use the software, you have to have a user, and then it is open and public, so you can add bubbles at will. This is completely open, and it's what I also like from this idea of wealth, of knowledge wealth, that it is related to the. It's not in coding. Like in my case, I don't even know how to code. So when I see these open source ideas of coding everything, I find it very interesting, but it doesn't talk to me that much as it talks to you. But it talks to me when I see open knowledge that is a bottom-up approach and is giving the power to the local people to connect their own knowledge, and they can share it in 7 Vortex or whatever they want. So thank you for the opportunity.
Yeah, I cannot see 7 Vortex, and 7 Vortex is connecting as well with Neo4j, right?
Yeah, I put it before. But I don't think I didn't even put 7 Vortex.
Yeah, it's already here, right? It's the background.
Wow, that's great. That's great. We have a lot to dig in this mapping. Just in this mapping, that's a real-time mapping that Hugo just presented us, gifted us, right? It's amazing because we have a lot of things that we can look at it, and we can already see the linkage, right? Actually, Hugo, talk about the link, how you in a biomimicry sense, how you understand the linkage between things there, right? Because it's not only to say, let's say, oh, this is in competition, this is in collaboration. You can expand it, don't you?
Yeah. So I think for me it is when I was living into the wild in these ecosystems, I just felt the interconnectedness of everything. So my perspective there was, or my questions were more onto how does it work in human systems? What is the analogy that I can bring from, let's say, money? And you are talking about wealth. So when you see the forest, they are working for the commons already. So nature, we seem to be the only species that is not working in this way, whether we call ourselves conscious or not. So when I think about it, then I was in the Harvard forest studying this old forest with my biomimicry crew, and I learned about energy exchanges in nature, which is the same of biological relationships. So the biological relationships is what we can see here. Like if you are familiar with Graph database, then in the relationships or connections, you can put any tag as you want. And what I do here is to just simplify it to 9 types of different relationships. So the binary process of computing is 0s and 1s. And what I saw in nature is not just 0s and 1s, that would be this, but it is also -1. So for me, that is a game changer in terms of the narrative. And it seems that if we want to be regenerative and in alignment with nature, then we need to have a narrative that is functioning from nature to us and both ways. So even systemic thinking, it is about one to the other, so causal effect. But what I learned from nature and from indigenous communities is that you have always 2 effects, like more like quantum physics idea. So this entanglement. So if you have a collaborative relationship, then it's plus, and I think this is what we are all talking about when you say peer-to-peer and how to add value and how to be like generous, and nature is generous as the way that we can harvest from it, or from she, as you want to see it. And when we see, for example, the relationship that we have with the planet, it seems more, and I will just create a different example here. Like, let's put the planet here. And that will be really this example that I find it is very easy. So when we call about our species or our civilization now with the planet. So I'm gonna connect it here. Right now, our civilization, it is having a predatory relationship with the planet. And that is what we call being extractive, because this side is extracting the energy and the other side is losing the energy. So one is winning and the other one is losing. And I think our common goal should be to add value to the system, so to be in harmony with nature and to be able also to live there. So it was very difficult to me to understand, like even from Neo4j perspective and systemic mapping, that they were not getting the wisdom of nature and the science of biology to bring these kind of topics to narrative. They were restrained by the food chain, for example. And for me, it seems like it is a really deep pattern. So when I dig deeper, I understood that it was also about neural networks or mycelium. All bio networks, they work in energy with this kind of energy exchanges. And then you have different information getting in. So my question then was about the markets. How could be if we understand the markets as energy exchanges, not just as money exchanges? But for example, when we understand energy and the earth as a metabolism, we have things like matter is energy stored into something. So it's all about how we consume and convert this energy and matter. And this is the kind of thing that allows you to see when you have energy exchanges like this. So this is the kind of narrative that I'm wishing to bring, and I'm putting it together also as a mind mapping, or so each of these conversations, it's already a graph, and it's a graph that doesn't exist in any, let's say, database, because it is just generated from our own conversation and what I'm doing. So this is for the moment where the technology is. I don't know if you have questions.
Yeah, but it would be nice if you expand a little bit and talk about virtual Gaia, the virtual Earth.
Yeah. So let me just find it here. So virtual Gaia, it is tapping on this idea of metabolic Earth and trying to understand how the Isle of Lu that we live in, it is working in the galaxy. And for example, we like to think that the Amazons are the lungs of the planet. And this layer is related to humidity and wind. So if you have wind here and humidity, you see a strong relationship specifically in the Amazon. So and that is, I believe, that is because of the relationship with the forest that is there. So it's a breathing, it's more oxygen around there. But when you see the bioclimate zones of the planet, then we see that in fact, we have a tropical core. It is not just some lungs here, but the whole equator, it's related with the tropics. And this is in a planetary level what we should be taking care of if we want to keep the balance of the whole planet. So by seeing this, for example, we can also expand on the gases, and there might be some other people knowing about science more than me. I'm just, let's say, the illustrator behind. But here we can see that let me just put it in a perspective that allows us to see a better contrast. So this is what is really interesting. So I dream to have this kind of things for all the kids in the planet, just to play with what we are looking at. But let me take out the soil diversity. I think it's around here. So this is an experiment that we're doing, and colors are not yet in tune. So what we see here is gases, and we can see that gases are more concentrated not in the Amazon as we saw humidity and wind, but they are more in what we call the developed world, which are all cities in general. It's not anymore just the global north or the global south, but it is more the pollution centers of cities. And we can see the concentration of all this industrialization all over the place. So what I'm trying to achieve here is also this idea of understanding how the water works and the water veins of the planet and the bioregions. So as you like to put like self-organized networks, I'm also looking into this as like bioregions. So it is not about political division. And now we are also expanding into different networks that are present all over the place. And I think this gives us a small insight on how the regeneration movement is happening. And I think this is what I would like to expand into. But these veins of water also, I wish that we'll put water into the center of the conversation as a conducive to life primary element kind of thing. So if we go to, for example, Mamoni Valley Preserve in Costa Rica is one of our use cases, then we can see how there is a vortex signal here. So these kind of maps of vortex, they are also being related to the space. So they are adding value to the territory. And one of my visions was how to map the knowledge of the indigenous people, but also scientists working there. And for example, this is about a superorganism from a biologist that is there working in the Mamoni Valley Preserve in the university. And yeah, tell me the mission. Have a question?
No, please continue. I was just waiting for Danilo King that just arrived, so it's in the whole room.
Okay.
Yeah, so you please finish, man.
I've been developing different kinds of visualization, not just the vortex, but also transformation rings, so how to understand impact. And I think this is also related with wealth, as you put it, because this is how an ecosystem of bioregion, from my perspective, should be seen. So the functional ecology, the water, the soil, the air or the atmosphere, and the energy available. It is not exactly this icon, but this is just a test. So how to move from degenerative mindset to regenerative, and why not thriving in terms of nature-wise mindset.
Wait a second, I didn't understand that. I'm interested in that view. How do you see wealth there? How that thing talks about wealth to you?
There's a gradient, and the gradient allows you to see one thing that is negative and goes into something that is positive, and that is related to each of our perspectives. So it should be a group discussion on having the wealth, the gradient develop here, as I'm doing in Costa Rica. So for example,
so
bioculture.
This relates to your.
Yeah, sorry.
Does it relate to your plus minus zero relationships, like a win-win?
It's related. I did this one first. So when I saw nature, when things were getting dry and transformed, they were in a gradient of colors. So I like to use gradients, and I also like to use the tree rings. So tree rings are telling you a story. So this is cycle 1, cycle 2, and cycle 3. And instead of just pie charts, but they are actually time 1, time 2, and time 3. So if, for example, they asked me in this valley, in this Mamoni Valley Preserve, to put governance because it was important for them. So just as an example, because metadata is not connected here, but you can do it. It's just a use case. Let's say governance before, so before, now, and after. Before, it didn't used to respect indigenous rights. Now they're respecting it, so it is more sustainable, but they really would like to move forward into something more regenerative. How is marked the color inside, like the criteria for each color? It is not completely defined. As I said, this is just an example, but my experience doing this for about 10 years and evaluating projects is that it is a common discussion, right? It's a collective discussion on what kind of design criteria you should get inside. And once that is there, then it's also a continuous iteration process. So it is kind of calibrating itself as it goes into the field and it gets experimented.
Okay.
So this is Virtual Gaia, and I can come back to that note.
Yeah. It's wonderful. Would be nice if we can hear Danilo that just arrived, Danilo King. Danilo, my friend, we're doing a different gathering here, different meeting. You're going to present yourself a little bit, and Hugo here is going to map out what your presentation, let's say. You're, so feel free.
Okay, so a little bit. How do you say in English? In Portuguese, we say I just dropped from parachute, and basically I have. My name is Danilo. This is I'm going to or my spiritual name you can put together. And I'm from Brazil. I have a few projects that I work, not work, but I cooperate with Vini. Now I am getting a little bit more involved with Florian. But most of my time I stay in a temple, in an ashram. And I think the more I stay here, the more I see how all this ecosystem view, how this new way of doing things, it's changing things. So I'm not gonna talk much because there are a few people here, but yeah.
Wow, that was brief. But okay, I think it works. So, my dear friends, I think that I can call it everybody here a dear friend, even you, Patrick. I feel that we already resonate, right? And what we're trying to achieve here, is to understand that we already have the understanding, the knowledge, the conscience that doing this what we are calling wealth transfer is something that we have the tools to visualize it in a very complex way. We can, this is simplifies the paths that we can take to come to formalize, let's say, a way to do it, or various ways to do this wealth transfer. And the ambitions here is not only to map this as already mapping, but to invite people that actually are, as Danilo King and Marcelo Borea, people that are already doing the transition, let's say, doing the movement to the wealth transfer way, right? And doing that and mapping that, we can see ourselves as a organism, an ecology of organisms that has relations between itself and can nurture itself in collaboratives, interactives, and regenerative ways, right? Not only in the peer-to-peer way, but in the transitional between what we have today as a monetary system to what we have tomorrow as a decentralized, let's say, not so systematic monetary system, let's say. Because you see, the thing about the monetary system as it is today, because it's totally networked, so you need agents, you need intermediaries, you need people's in positions of power, and the type of microeconomies that we're talking here about is not related to people's in position of power or in a networked way. We're talking here in a peer-to-peer movement fashion. We're talking about rising microeconomies that are hyper local and are planetary in scale too. So they are global, right? So what we're trying to map out and at the same time do this, because we're doing this, right? We're doing this in real time, try to let's say establish a blueprint, right? Establish a cultural blueprint of how we can come up with new ethos for society as a whole, and only have it really weak, not strong, really weak linkage with the actual societies, where we only make an interface with what already exists, and we try to not to nurture it, because you see, if you nurture, you sustain, right? So it's not to nurture and not to sustain. Just we establish weak links, weak linkage with what exists, and we try to interdependently nurture ourselves and gather ourselves and in an expansive and in a contraction way. We expand and contract like an organism. So this is the ambitions here. I know that you guys at Sensorica and Good Labs,
Yeah.
you have a way to
Vinicius,
contribute.
I really wanted to hear, because I've been into the mail chain, the email thread, and just also after the conversation we had with you, TB and Michel, during the OCAST experience, I really wanted to understand what are what have you guys been thinking about about this movement of wealth transfer, this idea of cryptomania, bringing the peer-to-peer economy, this transition happening super clearly, and happening fast. I think it's months. How do you envision that? Because we've been struggling with Utopia basing actually the system based on knowledge and on inspiring regeneration as a way of defining wealth and sharing it. But we are always fighting when it comes to the olastro, to the asset. Is it, if you tie it to an asset or not? The moment is the issue is the exchange. The moment that you need to have the conversation back with game A, where you need to have a legal twin, or some places you need to have this idea of having a way of just connecting it to the unreal world, or real world, but normal world. And I'm just really with an issue of trying to understand how if you've been thinking of way of doing this, this thing of threefold, for instance, and all chain that we've been connecting with was a way of using a stable coin at some point based on hosting to do this. But how can we invite people to come and pour their energy into that system?
I think we can talk about that, but I think maybe Patrick, I don't know if they blew your mind with the mapping and visualization. He's a data mapping visualization guy, so I just wanted to get a bit of his feeling there.
Yeah, it's definitely interesting to watch because I've been playing with the Arrows app, and not nearly as fluent in kind of creating those connections and everything. So you got me jealous here. Yeah, I mean, we have kind of a wide range of things happening here, and a lot of them are brand new for me. So it's definitely interesting to kind of hear where all of you guys are coming from, and Tibby and I were kind of sharing a little bit where we kind of saw the connection with the mapping, how this might kind of enable this kind of wealth transfer activity. So yeah, I'd be really interested in kind of hearing. I mean, it sounds like you guys are coming from a context that I wasn't really privy to, but would be interested to hear a little bit more background on with the Peer-to-Peer Foundation, and kind of hear what your thinking is in terms of, and I don't know if graphing even plays a role in that, or if you had some other kind of idea about how to kind of facilitate this transition, but I'm definitely kind of looking forward to hearing that context and getting caught up.
I think we owe an answer to Florian. Should we branch into your question? Who's facilitating?
Yeah, if you can explain to us a bit of what you were sharing with Vinicius about this wealth transfer program.
Yeah. I think we're very complementary here. Like Hugo, he blew my mind because he's working on these visual tools to bring to surface these patterns at the ecosystemic level, right? So, so we can understand how how the ecosystem functions essentially. And without this kind of data visualization tools, we're lost because it's huge, it's complex, and it's vast. So I'm really impressed. And also what I appreciate from Hugo was where he was coming from. He was coming from observing nature and looking at dependencies, connections, relations, and how things flow into nature, and then going to the human designed environment, institutions, and try to analyze that based on what he saw in nature. So that is a nice path into it. In contrast, what we do is starting from a very specific problem. How do people get shit done? Okay, what are the recipes that they use to get shit done? I mean, if it's just something simple, small, I can do it. I can be an artisan, and I can carve something out of wood, and there you go. I don't have to go to buy it or to borrow it from anyone. I make it myself. But there is things that we need that require many people to act together, to share a vision, a goal, to put their resources, together, take some risk in doing so. So how do you enable that? How do you enable that? And capitalism is a recipe. It's a recipe, right? Communism is another recipe. And other indigenous ways of doing things, communal, collaboration, and using I don't know, culture, spirituality. There's different ways of gathering people together and have them take risk and invest some of their resources, precious time, put their skills into it instead of doing something else, like going under a tree and sleep, or I don't know, engage in some other activities. So how do you take people and put them together? So there's a lot of recipes. And our thing was, so this is where we come from this very specific problem. How do you put people to work together? How can people get shit done? So there are different patterns that exist. But we saw this peer-to-peer thing, right? We saw this peer-to-peer thing in around 2010. Open source movement, open hardware starting, Michel Bounds and his ideas about peer-to-peer. So we said, wow, so there is a new mode of production, okay, that was emerging, and that was pretty nicely formalized or explained by Yochai Benkler, commons-based peer production, as a new mode of production. So we thought this is cool, but it mostly happens in the digital world. Let's bring it to the material world. So this is where we come from. So we come from a very specific problem. This is the complementarity. Like Hugo goes into nature, observes the whole thing. Okay, and he says, wow, this is amazing. I mean, let me go back to see what humans do, how they engineer their world, okay, and analyze that based on what I see in nature, biomimicry. Like, are they really like efficient? Are they using processes that I can see in nature, or something is wrong? It's too mechanistic. Some parts are colliding. How can we smooth it out? So you're like have a more like general view and approach. Us, we're just coming from a one problem, specific problem, and then slowly, as we're trying to solve that, slowly we realize, but wait a second, it's also about governance. And what about governance at the national level? What about governance at the global level? Is representative democracy compatible with this new mode of production? So we branch into some other things. What about money? What about the market? and all the speculation that has poisoned it, right? Which yeah. So so we our movement is from that specific problem branching out. You see what I'm saying? To the more general, and reaching the question of wealth. At some point, you know, we did realize that yes, wealth is not just money, you know, and essentially, like I said, you know, I like to give this project as an example where we set up to build something using the Sensorica recipe, the commons-based peer production recipe, and we logged everything that went into this process: people's time, money, machines borrowed, used, spaces, and all that. And we said, if this is purely capitalist recipe, you know, you would have to pay for all that went into this. It's everything is a transaction. Okay, you're buying some people's time, you rent a space, you buy some equipment, or you rent some equipment, you buy some materials. So you know, our real data, you know, amounted to close to $80,000 of initial capital to get this done. Okay, which is making the first prototype, being able to test the market, right? So if you had this idea, you need the capitalism, according to that notion of wealth as unlocking mechanism for economic activity. You would have that financial barrier of $80,000. You have to come up with $80,000 if you wanna, if you dream about having this company made, okay, built. And when we did it according to the Sensorica recipe, in the end, we only spent $2,000. Now, when you look at it and say, "Oh my God, that's a huge reduction." That's a huge reduction. The only thing we spent the money for was for materials that we had to purchase. Okay, but spaces, equipment, people and skills, and these were contributions. So here's another recipe of bringing people together and making them stick to this project for a period of almost a year, sinking a lot of time and taking a risk together, okay, utilizing some of their assets, okay, that they had, like tools, equipment, spaces, and all that. And it was not just human beings, it was also companies that were involved in this project. So in the end, we just had to spend $2,000 to buy some screws and some wood and some stuff like that, right? And some electronic boxes that we could not make ourselves, or was probably not worth making ourselves. And so when you think about it, it's like wealth. The realization is that, you know, we like to say do more with less. You know, this is the catchphrase that we use for collaborative entrepreneurship. Do more with less, but that less means money. Less means, you know, do more with less money, right? Because that's how people immediately understand the phrase. But what it means is that the type of wealth that capitalism has invented, okay, that is wealth as consumption, but also as production and innovation. You know, it's not required. It's not a necessity. You know, so you can move stuff. We can build a pyramid. We can fly to the moon. We can go to Mars. And not spending billions of dollars. I mean, bypassing the financial system, bypassing the bank. You know, just by leveraging they're not new wealth. These are not new wealth. This wealth that is not recognized by capitalism. So when you talk about you know, another capitalistic way of talking about it, but your social capital, how many people you know, how many people you're connected with, right? Your power of convening, bringing people together, making people, you know, do certain things, or having people listen, paying attention to you, and all that. Well, this is wealth. This is wealth. But you know, there are ways to monetize it in capitalism too. You know, I build a personal brand, and then people invite me to conferences, and everybody knows me, so everybody wants me. You know, there's way to capitalize that. Or I go on Facebook and I become a star because I'm a star, and you know, I monetize my Instagram, whatever, you know. So there's way capitalism allows you to kind of leverage that kind of wealth, right? But it's kind of marginal to what our economy is, and the money
Centralized.
is the game.
And centralized, so based on an algorithm that create accumulation.
Yes. So then with crypto, so here's the thing with the crypto, Florian. At some point I thought, first of all, my belief is that the market first of all, we need to understand what we mean by the market. There's the farmer's market. The farmer's market where there is supply and demand, and the price arises from that interaction, and there is the Wall Street market that has nothing to do with the farmer's market, because the price is not just represented by the thing that is produced. You have all these derivatives.
And when you talk about farmers, you talk about all kind of farmers, right?
Yes, well, I just want to use this example of a farmer's market on a Sunday morning, where they're trading things, and people come and they buy and they sell, and you have supply and demand. But
as well as hosting farming.
Sorry?
As well as farming, like data farming.
No, I'm not talking about that. No, I'm just talking about the.
But in both cases, you're linking it to something real that you're trading. Like you're producing like 1 gigabyte of storage and you trade it. You're producing 1 kilo of rice and you trade it. It's real in both cases. And knowledge is real. Like Wall Street is not real. It's like it's a creation.
Yes, but So what I wanted to lead with this example is to say that the assets that are traded on Wall Street are many times over the real things that are traded and consumed or used, because you have all these derivatives around. So there's a fallacy. When you go to take your economy course 101, the professor says, well, for example, let's talk about supply and demand and the market. There's a farmer and sells apples and this and that, and then he extrapolates that to Wall Street. It's like saying, well, I have a molecule here. It's like the biologist in the lab saying, I have a molecule here. Look, I put it on that virus and it kills it. Yeah, but now try to put it in a human body. It's not the same thing. So jumping from the farmer's market to Wall Street, okay, it's like jumping from the petri dish to a human organism. So that's the fallacy. They say, look, it works. Hey, look, the guy with the apples on the farmer's market and supply and demand, look, it works. Yes, but extrapolating that to something that is much more complex. Okay, talking about ecosystems and complexity, right? It just doesn't work like the same way. You know what I'm saying? It's like a fallacy of the logic doesn't apply, right?
I think it's very interesting, especially because what you're talking about very tells me what my teacher tells me, how the real wealth on earth is the things that we need to survive: land, food, basically land and water, and an ecosystem. And besides that, all the other things that we created, the technologies, the industries, the real wealth in here is human energy, or let's say human time, or basically we can call it human energy, because all of the rest is something that comes from that. And in the end, without human energy, you cannot do anything else. And he always keeps saying that we talk about the Portuguese, about the other people who are exploring the colonies and all that, but in the end, we never left this human exploring model in our whole history. We never left this human exploring model. And those guys who are on the top, who have this huge amount of money or this other kind of wealth that they talk about, they know that in the end, it's all about human energy, besides the lands and the materials. And they know that they can have how many dollars or the currencies they want. If humans or people are not interested in giving their energy for that, it's worth nothing. And I think where you're coming from is basically how to say, redefinição,
Redefining.
redefining. Yeah, we are redefining what true wealth is, because there is a lot of things that we are taught about what is wealth, right? And all the illusions that we get into. And there is true wealth, the things that actually is making things happen from the base. And after that became a question. Okay, now that we have this perspective, right? Now that we have this idea that wealth is not something that we used to know, what are your guys' plan? Because one of the things is that most of the ashrams, they have a different concept of wealth, and there are many models of that they try to live as a community. Of course, they don't have all the highest skills, but we could say that this idea of different way of living, of different way of co-creating, has been tested or has been tried by many institutions, especially those that consider this world an illusion. But at the same time, there was a lot of failures. Most of them still fail. And so I'm curious, like, once you guys have this perspective, how are you trying to build, like, what are you guys trying to accomplish? Maybe this question is something that is because I came a little bit late, or maybe from a parachute, but yeah.
Yeah, please allow me one more minute, because I'm going to finish that idea and answer your question at the same time. So respond to Florian completely. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is that for us, the market as we know it, and all the crypto and the new crypto market will probably fail, or will probably be reduced to something very small. And we see here the application of capitalism, which is normal. People know what they know, and whenever something new comes, they try to fit it into what they know rather than the opposite way, right? So they stay in their dogma for a while. This is the transition period, and they apply it to what they've done and what they know. So they took these cryptos and they just create another market with speculation and all that, and then all these derivatives that you see on the financial and assets market are built on top of the crypto. Okay, so you can short, you can there's futures, there are all kinds of things in the crypto that are popular, so they're rebuilding the same thing. But that I think it's so. Just to state my position, I think this is just it's not just crazy. It's what people know, okay, what they're used to, and they just apply it to crypto, which is another type of instrument completely, okay. And so having said that, there is a bunch of organizations like Holochain that has created a crypto token on the open market, but doesn't believe in this kind of assets and in the market the way in the Wall Street type market. Okay, so why they do it? More than that, there is organizations that are creating tokens that are designed against trading. So because the token is a program, essentially you can make it behave the way you want, and they if you acquire it, you can resell it. So you can do day trading. Okay. There are tokens that have been created that are anti-market. So the more you trade them, every time you do a transaction, you lose a percentage, and that percentage is not that you lose and it goes somewhere else; it's destroyed. So the more transactions are made, the less of these tokens are in circulation. So this is a sort of a, it's not a perishable asset. It's like an asset that you can hold as much as you want. It just stays there. But as soon as people start to change hands, okay, it just destroys itself a bit by bit. So you can see that people are kind of coming out with these ideas against the market, but yet they're on the market. And coming to wealth transfer, the way I see it is, look at all these people like Holochain, like these guys that don't want their coin to be traded, like these other guys that are anti-market behavior. They are creating new symbolic systems to represent some form of wealth, some service, some resource, okay, and allows some new forms of interactions of humans, right? And that market there that exists, for me, it's an opportunity for us to get a bunch of money and give it to these developers, transfer, taking from here and put it there, get a bunch of cash, extract it from capitalism, give it to these people, to these programmers and these community builders and whatever, people like us that are building something new. And so you're taking wealth from one form and they create this new wealth and they create these new patterns. So for me, transfer is that. It's taking from capitalism and give it to peer-to-peer. Now, there is a lot of people on the crypto market that engage in consumerism behavior. So what they do, the token goes high, they make $100,000, they turn around and they go in and buy their Porsche, okay? And then they go on the beach with their girlfriend and they live the life of the rich and famous for, I don't know, for a few months, and then they have to do some other trades or something. That's wrong. That's taking from capitalism, which is taking from other people because you're speculating, and putting it back into capitalism. That, for me, that's wrong. What I'm doing when I talk about wealth transfer and the initiative that I started in Sensorica is to say, why don't we use a bunch of dollars and use the market, capitalist market, to pumping into back into Sensorica. You know what I'm saying? So if we get together and understand what's going on the crypto market and map that ecosystem and detect peer-to-peer initiatives that have a future, let's take some positions there, okay, and make some wealth there and inject it back into Sensorica. So wealth transfer for me is part of this process of metamorphosis where there is a butterfly inside the caterpillar, but it's not formed yet. It's not formed yet. But we're feeding from the caterpillar. We are feeding from his juices, right, from inside. So for me, wealth transfer is that taking that energy of the caterpillar and give it to the butterfly that's starting to grow inside. You see what I'm saying?
You know what, TV? Now, okay, now I got it 100%, and that's exactly actually what we were already what we were doing with the DApp lab with Danilo, building actually this DApp, investing into peer-to-peer token to reinvest the difference of wealth into itself by like pouring this energy back into the developers who can code, the ecosystem that can actually raise through this peer-to-peer experience and peer-to-peer apps or dApps that can run on Trifle, that can run on Holochain. So I could not imagine a better alignment. And I think there is one piece that is that we haven't been talking about, that I talked briefly about at the beginning, that is the cultural imprint that is so much needed, because the moment that you're able to build the right narrative, like homo narrativus, like just like create the crazy narrative, the myth, like you're able to talk about the story of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz, that at the end understand that she always had the power and the fucking wizard was a charlatan, right? So once you've got the myth, once you've got this like very strong indigenous myth and like very connected roots to this story, that's the moment you can actually bring that myth, bring people to like make that butterfly receive more inside that structure, like imploding it basically. And the moment that you have that myth connected with all those dApps and HAPs, giving an immediate advantage that you end up watching your episode of White Mirror, of that Netflix series, of that storytelling, and at the end, you can download the HAPs or the dApps from Utopia or from Tillon for meditating, from Farmers Market or whatever, from that ecosystem that was built through that. That's the moment that you actually like create this evolution or revolution by connecting a myth and an immediate advantage to it. Both for who has been investing and both for who has been part of that ecosystem from the beginning by helping imploding the beast, right?
For
Yeah,
me,
and
I think, can
go
I
ahead,
add
sorry.
something there?
Yeah.
Because it seems to me like a metamorphosis process takes the caterpillar into a liquidification process. So it liquidifies itself in order to restructure what we call imaginary self, and then it restructures itself to become a butterfly by using the same elements. So I like that analogy, and I also like the molting process, because the molting process is when the insects, they just, cicada, for example, that has a very appealing collective process of communication, so they are omnipresent in a way. And this is how I see also distributive technology, because they don't know how to be, they confuse the predator with the idea of being omnipresent by vibrating at the same level, at the same rhythm. And so it takes liquidification. In our case, I think we're doing two things inside of Vortex. So building a technology that is based in biomimicry life principles, so that allows us to behave the closest that we can to a living organism. And that's good enough for what you are saying. So we are all representing, from my perspective, all this new generation of technology and on business. But I do think that evolution happens by taking what is available. So liquidification happens from one thing that happened before. And I always wonder if this caterpillar was always caterpillar butterfly, or it was in the evolutionary process just a caterpillar, and then it became at some point a butterfly through the metamorphosis process. So I don't know if as humanity, if we are so young as a species, we are just getting into this idea that the mycelium takes longer time just to build the right network. So we might be just in the beginning of this, and this might take a little bit longer than we expect, Danilo. So in my case, I'm not always expecting to see all this change happening in one's lifetime, but it might take as monarch butterflies different generations. What I can do, I think, is representing these new types of business and trying to bring the force of business and technology into a different, like into a more powerful channel. So even taking capitalism. So when I see capitalism and then coming back to this world like we're living in, it's more on capitalism has diabetes, because it is not like functioning as in optimal way. So we need to push the limits of capitalism, as also using institutions and whatever is there to actually make it work with a different purpose. And I think that's what regeneration brings to the narrative, because regeneration feels as a very positive vector or on how to heal what we have done wrong. So the response, I think, is in each of us, and we are, well, I really appreciate being with you, because I think we are all aligned with this idea. But just taking nature as a reference, for me, it makes much more sense. And trying to co-evolve as a species, acknowledging that we are a very young species, will also allow us to learn more from whatever is there. Because sometimes I feel like technology and business are not humble enough to understand that there is a more developed technology in nature. And what we are doing is kind of being a toddler and being in a candy shop, having 3 years old, and then eating all what we can eat. So sometimes for me, it seems like technology is just taking materials for the sake of materials, or energy for the sake of energy. And it is not always adding value. And that's why I'm joining the conversation of business and technology, because I think we need better proposals. And there is not just one. Diversity makes an ecosystem resilient. So I think it takes all our ideas, and I'm glad to push in any direction that you would like me to push with you guys. But this is just an emergent movement. So I don't think, Danilo, that there is a given answer for your question, because otherwise that will be completely wrong. We don't know where is it going completely. We are just living one day at a time, and this is what we can share. So we need just to push in our real time where we can go forward in a more positive and harmonious way, from my perspective.
I'd like to share a few things. I totally agree with Hugo about it's an emergent process. So just wanted to check. Sometimes you have an idea already, you know, but as an emergent process, you always have this time of clarity and this time of confusion, and the time of clarity and the time of confusion. Just wanted to see which step we were in. There's a friend of mine who talked. I don't remember the philosopher's name, but he says that there are only two situations where wealth is redistributed in our looking back to history. The first one is when some king or the people on the top decides to redistribute. Like, that's one, and I don't think it ever happened. And the second one is when there is war, because when there is war, resources are destroyed. So it doesn't mean it's redistributed. It means that it's the opposite of printing USD, let's say. You know, they're destroying USD, so everyone have a bigger share of the wealth. So until now, these have been the first one only in very ancient ages, but the second one from the last 2000 years, these have the only time where wealth had been redistributed. And just like, because I see that this is our purpose, and I have been thinking about that, and I have realized I've been in this process for some time, even with Vini. So one of the things that we created was TauDAO, where basically I would get my crypto earnings and say, okay, Vini, you can do whatever you want, basically. And now we're having some people are developing their own projects. Of course, we created a little model, but the idea was very similar to yours. And what I've learned in this process from 6 months now, or maybe 1 year with TauDAO, now we have more than 4 or 5 projects going on from people who wouldn't be able to without the initial funds, is that what people need is not money, like what we say, like real wealth is not money. What people need is their basic necessities met. And once they have their basic necessity met, so they can have time to work on the things that nourishes their heart. So it's not about only getting the money and giving them to people, because even though like there are a lot of people who what they need is not money. What they need is security, is having, you know, their minimal requirement met. That's what most people need.
Love, empathy, recognition.
Yes, yeah, and like and connection with people. So that's what I've learned, is that when we're talking about transferring wealth to people, I wouldn't see as, okay, just giving them USD or any type of currency, but getting their needs met, getting their needs met. And another thing is that what I think what we are getting is not we are transferring wealth, but we are taking back our most of our wealth, I would say, because what I realize is that when people who have their basic needs met, they come together with each other and they are happy and they are excited about something, you know, they are in full control of their own energy, you know, they are directing their energy to projects that really makes them alive. And when that is happening, they don't need a lot of, you know, currency. It's just my experience from this last 6 months of working with TauDAO, which is basically a fund where anyone can participate in a project and say, okay, I need X amount, and that amount will be transferred. Like that's how TauDAO works. Like you don't have to say why you need that amount. You don't have to justify anything. You just say, okay, I need this amount, and it doesn't matter what kind of work you're doing. Of course, we don't have unlimited resources, but people are managing with the small amount that we have, and they are making projects and more projects and more projects. So yeah, I'm just sharing my what I've been trying to do based on this similar idea I think that we have, you know, because this is something that I thought last year, you know, like, okay, now what do I do with this? And this is a project that's been going on, and I think Vini can explain better about this because
I think
Vini is
the challenge, Danilo, and I think is just the cultural shift that people needs to get in order to be able to work in that model. Like it's huge, the level of shift that you need from people to be able to go on that model. Like, and I think that's the real challenge in like you're giving people freedom, like just like get whatever you need. Like first the person will start to ask what I need. So like it's never working like that usually. So it's I think the main challenge that I see is like in terms of execution is like how you make it in a way so people can like give the best of their time for a purpose that they decide or they choose or they see and collaborate, forgetting and like separating from this traditional way of like recognizing their contribution.
Well. I think my dear friends that we already blown up our time here a lot, and Hugo has to go. And I think a lot, man. Was fantastic. This mapping, I'm going to dig this out really, really profoundly, and I suggest that you guys do the same. Please share the link for Patrick, for everyone here to take a better look and see the linkages of what we just shared here. And man, this is the first touchdown, right? Of what we're supposed to do, what we want to do together. So let's metabolize a little bit. Let's look at it and let's see what we can come up with in a practical and a pragmatic way that. Of course, we're already doing it, right? Like Danilo just shared about TauDAO, like Florian shared about Utopia, and like you guys shared about Good Labs and Sensorica. We are already doing it. So how can we do it in a more efficient way, right, TV? For our recipe to become better, let's better our recipe. Let's better the recipe in a way that we see ourselves as organisms, as ecology of organisms that we can thrive, we can feed each other, and we can capture the imagination of people. We can as we are doing with Utopia, as we are doing with TauDAO, you guys are doing with Sensorica, and this is going to expand naturally and going to have its contractions, right? So in that sense, we can enroll, we can put in the loop people that has let's say monetary idle wealth, right? Like I don't know what to put my euros, I don't know what to put my dollars, and they can look at this and say, well, I want to do an experiment like Danilo and Vinicius and another guys are doing in TauDAO, or I want to put this app related to redefine education, that is this Utopia. Well, I'm in it, man. This, I'll give you the money. Here's the money.
Yeah, and I think we should start very empirically, like just like bring a Gitcoin address, just start pouring something there, and just start like see where it like how it goes. I think it needs to be concrete, and so
Yeah.
we can walk the talk.
Yeah,
Mhm.
why not?
I ask for something. Well, I guess we're all getting ready to run, which is it's good for me. But I did want to make sure to touch base. You guys have brought up a lot of kind of context that's a bit foreign to me, and I was wondering if there was any documentation to how you guys are thinking about this. Florian, it sounded like you guys have kind of explicitly laid out some of the your vision here, and it would be helpful for me to know where those resources are so that I can kind of catch
I
it.
think if we can go have the edit version of the mapping we just did, we can just put so
Add
much of the links.
Yeah.
Like some of the nodes also were missing, like the Tion nodes, like some of, so I think we could keep editing and add more of links to this. So
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Then I'll
For
refer
a
that.
moment, there is just the owner that can do it, and I can give it to anyone if you want to put it inside. So I can create one for you, Florian, and then from there you can just get all the information that you know, and we can start fulfilling it. If that's okay.
Great.
I was wondering also like how to get this graph into a Neo4j if you are used to, and then if we are talking about giving knowledge back as well, how this collective knowledge could actually inform a search into the web, for example. That could be really interesting, just not from what we know that exists, but from what it is there, and thanks to this graph to bring some information as well. So let me see how can I make it done.
Oh,
Yeah,
just one last thing. Chibi and Hugo, you guys are going to do the next OCAST, right? Right, Florian? You guys are going to do the next OCAST. So you guys have to sync to peer up and say who is going to be the guest, and the guest has to invite the co-guest. You know the drill. You guys
Yes.
know the drill. So let's make the next OCAST. So this is something. This is pragmatic. Let's do this.
I thought it was an OCAST right now.
Well,
Me
why
too,
not? Yeah.
I thought that it was the
share
other
with
side.
you guys. Now
Yeah,
it's lunchtime here.
Okay. Bye-bye.
And so I think there is my teacher, my guru. And yeah, I think the best way is to live and try out in experience what we are each trying to do. So
Exactly.
okay, I'm gonna go now to lunch. But
Bye-bye.
Nice meeting you. Yeah, I'm gonna do the same. I gotta log off. My baby's starting.
Yeah.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, Hugo, yes, let's connect because I think there is so much to explore from our different point of views. And we meet right in the middle for sure. And also your mapping, we can connect that with the mapping that we do with Good Labs. And I have some ideas about how to do it, but better we keep them for the UCAST, right? To have some good material.
Well, I didn't hold anything back, so let's see how we can level up the conversation.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, guys, thanks a lot. It was a wonderful touchdown, first one. I think we started something very, very, very significant here, right? Because we are all doing things that are already very relevant. So for this transition times that we're living in. So let's move on. Florian already laid out some pragmatic steps about Gitcoin. We have the OCAST, and we will have our next touchdown, right? We can do it next week or
Let's do
15
it
days.
next week. Let's do it next week, same time, same hour. It can be.
Yeah. Yeah, for me it's okay.
I really understood TB. I finally got very clearly what you meant now with the use of Cryptomania for the liquidification of the. I got it now very clearly, and we should.
Sorry, guys, I really have to go, and
No
because
problem.
Here we go.
I'm late to lots of meetings. Sorry.
There you go. But TB, yeah, and now I got it extremely clearly. You can cut the recording maybe.
Yes, of course.
And